All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, July 16th. Happy Backdrop Day, everyone, as every Thursday. Um, General announcements. If you would like a PHP Storm license and you don't have one already, send an email to info@backdropcms.org. You need to be a member of the Backdrop Contrib group in order to get one, but if you are not yet a member, we can help you through that process as well. Basically, anyone who volunteers to port or maintain modules, themes, or layouts for Backdrop has a free license for PHP Storm for a year. So let us know if you need one. No important updates from the PMC this week. And Nate, do you want to talk about community growth?
Yeah, sure. So let me get the agenda doc up. I was just looking at some of the new modules that came into the repository. We have 5 new modules since our last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. There's some real interesting ones in there. SMS framework, actually looks like that was maybe a little over 2 weeks ago. SMS framework, Blockify, contest module, which looks kind of cool, and Graham's work on a simplified version of date module. Lots of great stuff happening in the Backdrop contrib land. Numbers-wise, we have 38 total authors for Backdrop contributed modules, and those 38 authors have written a total of 136 total projects for Backdrop CMS, including the 5 new ones since our last meeting. And 53 total projects have official releases and therefore are synced with backdropcms.org. So lots of still great excitement. Seems like pace continues to continue along on a steady clip. Just really exciting to see all of these projects not only come into Backdrop, but also, I mean, we don't track the maturity of these projects, but a lot of projects we've been seeing a lot of increased maturity and increased stability as well. So it's great to see that work happening continuously also. Let's see. So that's what I've got for community growth. I'll just roll right into infrastructure tasks since I usually cover that as well. Let's see. Update status checking. We talk about this every week, but it's still kind of the same as where it has been, which is update status checking is working. If you tag your project as a 1.x-1.xy, so API version is Backdrop 1, and then do a normal semantic versioning afterwards, then that will get your project synced with backdropcms.org, and update status checking will work for your contrib modules. We still haven't gotten it much further than that, though. Things like actually publicly displaying how many installations of modules are out there, and charts of like usage statistics are all still on our to-do plate, as well as things like building out some more granular reporting, like determining which modules within core are turned on, and perhaps even certain configuration options within core, which ones of those are turned on. Like, we plan on doing some more of those things so we can get more granular reporting, so we can figure out which features are valuable in Backdrop and which ones people never use. And also just figuring out things like, how many sites out there cleaning URLs, like things like that would be really useful for us to figure out. Project Browser, we're not going to skip over it this week. We're hired on making it so that you can install, or not install, but actually find themes and modules and layouts from within the user interface of your Backdrop site, so you don't need to leave your site in the first place to find modules that you can install. We actually already have the ability to install modules and themes and layouts within your site without leaving your site, but you have to copy and paste in the URL, which makes it really limited in its usefulness. So adding the project browser will make it so that people can find those projects, and then we'll just build into the existing interface for installing modules, which has always existed even in Drupal 7, and just make it so that functionality is a lot more useful. We're still hung up on that issue on some server-side work. which I had tried to outsource, but it looks like outsource is in delegate to someone. But I think that we might need to take another look at that and just do a little bit of server-side tweaking ourselves and get that up, because the code side of it is pretty well all in place. It's really the server-side implementation that we're hung up on right now. So I'm hoping we'll get that soon, like hopefully this week, and then next week we'll have some more progress to report on there. Let's see, next item, Drush for Backdrop. I actually think maybe I'm making.
So I just read through that issue. It looks like there's a question for you in there, Nate, if you want to take a look at that after the call.
Okay, great. But anyway, it looks like since our last meeting, which is 2 weeks ago, Jeff, Saren Deputy, has done a little bit more work there and is hung up on a little bit of a technical question. But things still rolling along. I'm still feeling really good about Drush for Backdrop. It's just a matter of putting in some time to get that moving forward. Okay, let's see. Jen, why don't you take it on from here with the updates to the flagship site?
Sure. So we just had a design check-in meeting just now. We have designs for the modules page, the themes page, and the node pages for modules and themes on backdropcms.org. We worked out a plan for how to hand off work on that, and we decided to put a hold on the layouts, the find a layout page and the layouts node page, because we can use the designs we already have for the find modules and module node page for now. And that'll at least enable us to get everything done and out, and we can see how that works and then iterate on it later. So that should be in the near future, which is good because we have modules and themes and layouts people need to be able to find, and it would be great to have them aggregated on our own site instead of GitHub. And then we have other stuff coming in the future. Next on my hit list is a showcase site, because people keep asking, what sites have been built with Backdrop? And I have to say, I don't know yet. It would be great to give people a way that they can post the work that they're doing. So if any of you are working on sites and you want to put them up, I want to be able to have people post information about your websites and then post links to your website, so the websites get like a little SEO bump in exchange for being listed on there. I know that's something that makes my clients really happy, so hopefully everyone will say, oh, put my site on that site, and then we'll find out who's actually doing what with Backdrop, which will be really interesting. And then, of course, we want to build the same amazing tools that Drupal has for its community, so having a service provider listing and a place that you can post and find jobs would be fantastic. And I think also an events calendar, as Backdrop starts to get events of its own, having a central place for people to go and find out where they can go to hear about or see examples of Backdrop in action, I think would be great. So other things that we're working on for Backdrop itself, 1.1 is out. We have another, I guess our next upcoming patch release is going to be 1.1.3. We've got one cross-port with a pull request from Drupal 7, which looks like hasn't been merged yet, but it is ready, which is good. Let me just do a review of that. We also have a bunch of, there's a meta issue on making Backdrop more responsive. Well, of course, it's responsive out of the box. It doesn't mean everything always works perfectly, so we have a meta issue of things we need to improve in terms of responsiveness, and it looks like we're getting a bunch of activity on that, which is also fantastic. And as we discover more bugs and it needs to get fixed, we will merge those in too. So if anyone has any bugs you found and fixed, that's great. Those will get in, and we'll weigh the urgency of those to figure out whether we need to cut a new release sooner or later. Obviously, if there's any security issues for Drupal that we need to address as well, those will determine a sooner release rather than later. The next minor release we have coming up is Backdrop 1.2. That's currently scheduled for September 15th. And that will include a built-in rich text editor, and a couple of field modules. So link field, email field, and date field are on our hit list for those. I don't know that there's been a lot of progress on the rich text editor in the last 2 weeks, but I know that we had a ton of progress before that, and it looks like those are going swimmingly well, which is fantastic. it does look like there's been a bunch of progress on the date module, which is great because that's what we're going to end up putting into core, at least some very similar version of it. So I don't know if anyone's maybe better qualified to give an update on this than I am, but it looks like we've got a basic date module, which is what we're looking at. It's a pared down version of the complete date module that removes date repeat field, date all day, and date migrate. And those things will probably remain in some date equivalent module in Contrib. So if people need those features, they can still get them, but they won't be coming from core. And then it looks like we also have link field. There's already a pull request in the queue, which is fantastic for that. I haven't looked at whether that is in yet or not, but it looks pretty much ready. So that is also amazing. And then we also have email field module going along in the same vein. We also have a Contrib version that looks really great. So hopefully we'll just be able to squeeze that in as well. So I think we're looking great for being on track to get all of those things into the 1.2 release in September, because it is only August. It's not even August yet. It's like halfway through July. Which is great, which means that if anyone has anything else they want to put into 1.2, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just make 1.2 fantastic in terms of WYSIWYG editor, rich text editor, excuse me, and the through fields we've got. We do have other stuff we're always working on improving, and we can definitely focus on doing more of this in 1.2 also, which is improving the user experience, so making sure that user interfaces are intuitive and straightforward, and also improving developer experience. So as people are starting to build their own websites with Backdrop, we'll get more and more instances of people trying things, seeing maybe the code seems a little funny in one place, and opening an issue saying, could I have a helper function, or we need a wrapper function, or this is weird. And we can kind of evaluate why things feel weird for people to be coding in Backdrop and see if we can make that process easier, either with compatibility layers, wrapper functions, or rewrites. And if the rewrite is going to change an API, that's obviously going to be pushed until Backdrop 2, but a lot of things we can improve still in Backdrop 1. So hopefully, as you guys are working on sites, you're taking notes of where things are easy and where they're not. I am super excited to be working on my first paid Backdrop site now, and I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into all of the weird stuff that comes up when you have client requests and you hadn't envisioned things happening until you have the request, and then you have to solve the problem and see how that works in a Backdrop world. So very soon I'll be in there complaining about Backdrop myself, which will be fantastic. All right. Every Thursday after this meeting, we usually have a little sprint in IRC. Our IRC channel is Pound Backdrop. We also have a Reddit at reddit.com/r/ who are less into IRC and more into Reddit. Of course, there's always other ways to get in touch with the Backdrop community. Everybody can tweet and use hashtag BackdropCMS. If you're on Twitter, there's a bunch of in-person meetings coming up soon too. So starting in 2 weeks, I think we have 3 Backdrop-friendly Drupal events on the same weekend, which is we have DrupalCon, we have the Pennsylvania Drupal Camp, and we have is it Drupal? So those two are that weekend. Then we also have Drupal Camp LA and Drupal Camp Costa Rica the following weekend. So it's going to be a Backdrop and Drupal-filled summer. It's fantastic. So if you want to talk to people in person, Backdrop, and feel free to attend any of these events. We can iCal feed on Google, which you find links to either on our contribute page on backdropcms.org, on the Reddit, or on these meeting agendas if you can ever find one of those in Google Docs. Sometimes hard to stumble on. We also have an iCal meeting scheduled for all of these meetings. We have this meeting, which is every Thursday at 1 p.m., which is pretty easy to remember. We also have a design meeting, which happens fortnightly or once every other week. We had one this week. We missed, I think, the last one, but we're here now. And we'll meet again 2 weeks from today to talk specifically about design-related tasks. One update for you guys, though, from that design meeting we had today is that we are working on Reveal.js slides for Backdrop. So Nate and I have given the same presentation, I don't know, maybe 100 times now about Backdrop, and we've been asked to create a shareable version of our slides that other people can work on. So we've created a repo in Backdrop Ops called Slides. And I would like to encourage anyone else who is also working on Backdrop presentations, particularly in Reveal.js, just go ahead and throw your slide deck up in that repository, create a pull request, and add it. And it can be kind of a communal source for anyone who wants to give a talk on Backdrop, if you're open to sharing, where they can pick and pull from slides that have been in previous presentations, and that would be kind of an easy way for anyone to give a talk on Backdrop based on anyone else's previous work, which I think would be kind of fun. So if you want to give a talk at a Backdrop event or a Backdrop-friendly Drupal event in the future, hopefully this resource will help anyone feel empowered to do so. All right, other things. We still have a 7-page article in the most recent version of Drupal Watchdog, although there should be a new version of Watchdog coming out very shortly. I'm not sure what will be in there in terms of Backdrop stuff, but there's likely to be some cool stuff in there. Even if it's not Backdrop, it'll be cool. So I'd say check that out. Yeah, I think that's all I have on my list. But maybe we should see if anyone else has anything they want to add or questions they want to ask. Nothing at all. How have the recent talks gone? So I would say the last 2 or 3 times we've given the Backdrop talk, it's gone really well. I think part of that is just because we've given it enough times that we know how to say everything in a way that seems to be fairly non-offensive to people, which is good. And also that we can actually do a live demo of the software. So rather than just talking about it in theory, it's here it is today, this is what it looks like, this is how you use it. And that seems to be very impactful to people, especially people who are suffering from the features problem in Drupal 7 and they're aching for CMI. The fact that they can see it kind of in action right now, I think is really compelling to people where they're like, oh, I really can't wait for config. And it's like, here, use it in Backdrop. It's right here. You can have it right now. And people are like, oh, I want it, which has been super successful for us. It also looks really pretty. I think the first few times we did demos of it when it still looked like Drupal, people were like, wow, it looks just like Drupal. And it didn't quite have that same impact of it being something new and exciting. But now it looks new and exciting, and that also has gone really well for people. I also think the last few times we've given the talk, we've gotten a bunch of really great questions from the audience about what is it like to, can we upgrade a Drupal 7 site to a Backdrop site, or how will layouts work? There's just questions that really engage the rest of the audience too, in terms of making it a little bit more personal and what it would be like for them to use Backdrop. So I think it's going really well. I think that, I don't know, I would encourage anyone who wants to give a talk about Backdrop to, put your own spin on it, definitely. But if we can get those slides out there for resources, you should have a pretty good framework that you can use to model your talk after if you didn't have a plan ahead of time. And we'll try and get some charts and graphs in there too, which will also be helpful in terms of Drupal share and stuff like that. I also think that we're pretty early in terms of adoption, right? Right now, I feel like most of the people who have websites are worried about the future, but they're not actually making any decisions, which I feel like is kind of a great place for us to be in because it gives us enough time to help establish contributed modules and community and infrastructure before people actually have to make that decision. So I think it's really good for us to be talking about Backdrop now, especially to other Drupal developers and people who are in the position to be making decisions, so that 6 months from now or whenever it is that they are going to be making those decisions, they're informed of all of the choices. So I think it's less important that we necessarily sell Backdrop right now, so much as we just kind of mention that it exists. And I think that kind of presentation, where we're not necessarily trying to sell people on it, but just trying to tell people what it is and why it is and how it works, and kind of let them come to their own decisions naturally, is also something that is making the talks go much better. So rather than trying to kind of prove our point, which we don't have to do yet, we can just kind of say, here's this thing. And I think that people are much more open to hearing about that. Are there any other questions? Anything you want to add, Nate?
No, I don't think so. Talks went great. The recent conference, Science on Drupal, which was just actually it's still going on even today and tomorrow, but Tuesday was the Drupal day. Talk was very, very well received, and we may be seeing some science community websites emerging on Backdrop in the next year, which is really exciting. And hopefully secured an invitation for next year as well to talk to all those folks. The Science on Drupal conference is a combination of all of the scientific communities in the United States, which includes NASA, NSF, NOAA, USGS, a whole bunch of governmental agencies that deal with environmental and earth sciences, and it was just fantastic. Really excited to see. Well, I'm excited to see that they're excited because they seem very, very interested in using Backdrop in their websites because they've got a lot of existing websites there with a lot of integrations, and every dollar that's spent on their websites is dollar that's not spent on research. So they're very excited about the possibilities that the Backdrop is providing them. So very cool.
All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, we should maybe wrap the meeting up, and I will work on getting the rest of those slides posted into our slides repo under Backdrop Ops, and then anyone else can take them from there. So we'll see you in IRC. Thanks for joining the meeting.
All right, bye guys.